we're back from the last time that you saw us here. I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Joining me once again, as he has done 718 or 6 times.
A few times.
Is Talmadge Rodger Varnado the third.
Good to be here as always.
Great to have you here, indubitably, as always, Talmadge. All right, so the topic for today is, how does this water taste? It's great. So moving on, I wanted to reflect on what we've done thus far. First episode of this podcast I uploaded on literally January the 1st, New Year's Day of 2024. So we're just 1 year over the 1 year anniversary of launching the podcast. So I wanted to take some time and kind of look back and reflect on why I started, what we've done, what I wanted to accomplish, and kind of take some looks forward. So I've invited Talmadge here, partially because I like talking to him about anything. Also because he has been, by far, my most frequent recurring guest. And as you're going to find out as we get talking, he also was integral in me starting this plan. So for several years, maybe not several, for at least a few years, several people had told me, man, you should be hosting your own podcast, or you should have a radio show. And I didn't take it that seriously. It's kind of interesting because going back when I was younger, people for years kept telling me, man, you should be a comedian, you should be in movies. And I paid no attention to that either. Maybe I need to learn to take a compliment if that's how it is. I don't know.
Pay attention.
What'd you say?
Pay attention.
But, So eventually I ventured into stand-up comedy and movies, and I'm still pursuing a career doing feature films. So when people started when podcasts started becoming kind of the more popular thing, people kept telling me like, "Oh man, you should be doing this, and you should be on the radio, whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, I could do that," but that's as far as the thought went. Part of it, I think, was I was just focused on, no, I want to be doing films. And that has not changed. But then a good friend of mine that I grew up with, Jeremy Riley, one of my best friends, been friends since elementary school, he was telling me on the phone one day, Jared, you need to get a YouTube channel. You need to be having your own podcast. This could really launch a lot of things and open a lot of things up. And I'll admit, my mindset at that time was the only people with real successful podcasts are people that are already famous, like the Joe Rogans. Now he's become a bigger deal with this podcast.
Sure.
He already had a name. Like, I'll watch Rich Eisen and Dan Patrick and some of these guys. My mentality was, well, sure, they have successful podcasts. People already knew them. And I didn't watch a lot of other podcasts. Like, I didn't even know how many other people were doing it. So my mentality was, if I do a film or something that else that takes off, then maybe I'll do some podcasting on the side. But my friend Jeremy was like, no, Jared, that's actually not true. There's a lot of people with successful podcasts and YouTube channels that you've never heard of. And he was like, you need to be doing this. So we got to talking pretty in depth about it. And I said, I'll pray about it as I do about any important decision. And I said, let me come up with kind of what I'm going to do. And Jeremy, I love his confidence in me. He was like, Jared, and these are his words, not mine, but he said, you're probably the most interesting person I've ever met. Just turn your phone on and hit record and upload whatever it is. Just say whatever comes to your mind. Everybody will love it. And I laughed. I said, okay, thank you, but I'm not doing that. Like, if I do this, it's got to be structured. It's got to be planned. Talmadge knows from when we worked together, I'm very detail-oriented. I can improvise when I need to, but I'm like, I'm not going into battle without being equipped.
You have to have a plan.
I'm just not doing that. I'm going to estimate the cost. I'm going to have a plan. Yes, we're not just going out there and saying, oh, let me find just 11 guys. Have you ever thrown a football? No, I'm going to have a quarterback. We're going to have a plan. Hold on, let me quarterback this thing.
Right.
So, yeah. So I was like, well, let me kind of figure out what I want it to be. And then later that same week, and this is just kind of the way that God works sometimes. Later that same week, Talmadge and I were having lunch, as we will do from time to time, a few times a year. And he tells me, hey, man, you remember that show, Siskel and Ebert? I was like, oh, yeah, I used to watch them all the time. These guys did movie reviews. If you don't know, look them up. You can get lost spending hours watching their old episodes.
I still do. And I watched them when they came out, and I'll do that now.
I'm the same. Yeah. When you told me, I said the same. I was like, I still watch them. And Talmadge then said, there's really not anybody doing that anymore.
Except on podcasts.
Except on podcasts. And correct me if this isn't quite what you said, but I think what you said was, I was thinking the other day, why isn't there another Siskel and Ebert? And honestly, Jared, I thought of you. Yeah. You should be doing movie reviews. And I was like, it's funny you say that. And then I told Talmadge, and Talmadge and Jeremy have not met still. And I told him what Jeremy was telling me. And Talmadge said, I agree with both of you. Yes, you should be doing this, but also, yes, you should have a plan. But Talmadge said, my opinion, man, you should be doing movie reviews. Like every time we talk about a movie, you talk about it in a way that's different, and it always makes me interested. And then Talmadge said, I'm just going to throw this out to you. You could do all this on your own, and I want to see you do it. It would maybe be more interesting if you had somebody to bounce ideas off of. And I'd like to be that other guy if it's okay with you. I just think that'd be fun. And instead of me saying, well, have you done this kind of thing before? Have you been in front of a camera? I immediately said, well, we already know we can sit and talk about anything. Yeah. In that lunch, we sat and talked for like 3 hours. Yeah. So I was like, all we're missing is a camera. Like we can do that. We already do every time that we hang out. So I said that part. I said, let me keep kind of processing and pondering. And so I thought, okay, let me come up with a niche, right? Most of these podcasts, you have a niche.
A common theme, yeah.
A common theme. And maybe it's just because I have so many different interests. I've always been the guy that goes to the buffet and has 2 plates loaded. I couldn't.
Yep.
Yeah, as you may have suspected, even when I was in good shape, I did that. It's just caught up with me over the years. But I couldn't come up with just one thing. So I finally settled on, okay, I want most of my episodes, or all or most, to revolve around the NFL, the NBA, movies, or my relationship with Jesus. I was like, those are all important things to me. And so I said, I can't settle on one thing. I'd almost have to have 4 different channels if I had a channel for each one. So I was like, I'm just going to kind of amalgamate those. And so amalgamate. Yeah, write that one down.
I can't spell it or I
would. Hang on, I'm trying to get that.
Chris is looking for it as we speak. So find the juxtaposition between amalgamate and propensity. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Wouldn't be the first time.
Well, that y'all know of. So when I decided, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and it's gonna see what happens. And to Talmadge's point too. And actually, I don't want to do all of your speaking for you. Do you remember, other than saying, and I'll fill in the blanks if you don't remember, because it has been over a year. Yeah. Do you remember, other than saying, like, you should do movie reviews, do you remember the other reasons that you told me, like, here's why I think you should really be doing this thing?
Well, one that comes to mind, it may not be the one you're thinking of, but one that comes to mind for me is, this is still an avenue to express your artistic vision, and the world has changed. You know, you've been an actor, you've been a director, you've even done some behind the scenes stuff. I mean, you've done all of it, and 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, your only real way to get real time experience was to get on a set and do it.
Right.
And somebody had to ask you onto their set.
Somebody had to hire you to do that.
We're in a world now where, with YouTube, with podcasts, with everybody having a phone camera, if something hits you, if you've got the people to do it, the idea, the energy, the backdrop, you don't need someone to push you along. You don't need someone to help you facilitate. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a faster avenue.
You're have the right people around you, and
But this is a way you can get your stuff out there. And to me, it was more about getting your ideas out there. Who knows? Somebody stumbles on this channel. It could be about your belief in Christ. It could be about sports. It could be about anything. And they just like your presence. They like the way that you can improvise. They like your sense of humor. And all of a sudden, they're like, he'd be perfect for a small role, which could turn into a bigger. You just never know.
Right.
It gives you more exposure, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And nowadays, we have more control than ever. Not to put anybody else down because we're doing it. But you look at people just like us that have YouTube channels every day with hundreds of thousands of views. And even 10 years ago, that was unheard of.
Right. And honestly, that is essentially exactly what I was remembering. You kind of gave me that whole pitch, and you're like, Jared, you've been doing this, and from Talmadge's perspective, he's like, the talent's there, the personality's there, the work ethic's there. You just need the right people to see, and this could be the way that it happens. And so I was like, okay, let me kind of piece all this together, and then I did a lot of praying about it, and I decided, you know what, let's do this. Let's see what happens. And so my first 4 episodes were just me straight to camera telling stories about my life and all revolving around my relationship with Jesus. If you haven't seen them, you can go back and watch them. They're episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2024. That was how I started, and that was where I was kind of like, again, I want to talk about sports and movies and different stuff. So I could do a channel where I'm talking about nothing but the Bible and Jesus, because that is a main aspect of who I am. But I want to do these other avenues too. But I was like, let me set the foundation with my first few episodes so people really know who I am and who I belong to and who I represent. And then we'll merge into some other avenues.
And it sets the tone for your channel. I don't believe had you starting out that way, people kind of know your core values and your style of communication and why you have that style of communication and what some people might call limitations. I'm only saying that because I can't think of a better term, but they know right off the bat you're not going to hear profanity. You're not going to hear this shock jock type of presentation.
Exactly.
And I think it's important that you set that culture. And I remember you telling me how important that was for you. That's why I'm doing this. I want them to know what to expect. I want them to know they're not going to hear certain things. If that's what they want, go somewhere else, because here I'm not doing that.
Right. This is not the channel where you can hear the type of stuff. So and that's true too. And then even when Talmadge and I started doing that, kind of to that point, and even off camera, we don't really argue. Even when we worked together and he was my boss, if we disagreed, we could both voice our thoughts and walk away, and it was fine. But it started to do this when we've done like our top 10 lists and this and that. We haven't always had everybody in the same order and this and that. But I told him right away, not that I thought we would do it, because I know we wouldn't, but I was like, I don't want this to be a channel where you got two people who are just literally arguing and getting mad over different viewpoints. I watch some shows like that, and I feel like a lot of it's just forced. I'm like, you're just arguing with him because you think you need to argue his point. If we agree, let's agree. If we disagree, let's disagree. But we're not going to suddenly talk to each other in a way that we wouldn't normally do.
Right.
I was like, I've got zero interest in doing things that way.
There's many forums like that to where if they're not arguing, they don't think they have a show. So they're going to play contrarian just because we've got to fill this hour.
Right.
And while we can still do that, because most of the time, if you notice, if you guys go back and look at some of our previous presentations, our lists are very similar. It's just the order is the same.
Yeah.
And so we have the same perspective, and you're going to see that in coming episodes. I'm sure we're not going to stop.
I have no intention of that.
Right. So I agree with you. I mean, it's a nice balance of, we can both bring our viewpoint and feel comfortable doing it, but at the same time still have a respectful way of communicating.
Yeah, and that's and again, another reason that I knew he would be a great person to have on the channel as a guest and as a recurring guest. So once I kind of laid that foundation, and then I told him, okay, Talmadge, I want to have you on the show. He was my first guest as well as the most frequent. Actually, the first time I had you on, we shot at least 4 episodes that first day.
Yeah.
And do you remember what the first topic we did together was?
I remember the grouping of topics. I don't remember the exact first one we shot, but we did 2 movie reviews. Well, actually, you did 2. I did 1 because I didn't watch the Barbie.
Yeah.
But,
Congratulations.
we did Denzel.
Yeah, the top 10 Denzel
Yeah.
performances.
So those come to mind. I don't know which one we actually
The actual
did
first
or aired
one,
first.
and that was all the same day. The actual first one we shot first and then uploaded first was analyzing the Equalizer trilogy.
Okay.
So you were on target when you said the Denzel ones because
yeah.
that's still a Denzel themed topic. But yeah, that was the first one we did. We kind of went through all three Analyzer films. We equalized the Analyzer trilogy.
Oh, wow.
Analyzed all three Equalizer
There's that improv
films, and there's that improv. There we go. Indubitably. I just kind of amalgamated that in there too with everything else.
I'll tell you what I do remember about the first episode is, I'm not going to say nervous is the word, because I don't think I was quite nervous, but I didn't know how this would play out. And so there was an excitement level in, okay, we haven't done this. How is it going to play out?
Maybe a tentativeness.
I'm kind of playing without a net here. How is this going to? We've got these ideas and these topics, but I don't know how we're going to stretch this out to 10, 12, 15, or however many minutes.
Right.
If it falls flat, where do we go? So I'm not.
What if this just isn't very good? Then what? Or
I didn't worry about that.
Oh, okay.
Because I just figured they're going to decide.
Well, that's true, too.
And once we've done this, I know your personality, and you're more along the mindset of, if they like it or they don't like it, if you like it, you're going to continue to do it. And yes, you're not saying we don't listen to the audience. You're always going to look for ways to make it better. But that wasn't the sole reason why you were putting it out. For the views, for the clicks, for the positive affirmation. It's more for, this is what I believe, this is what I think, this is what I want to share with the world.
Right.
And you do it. And I think that's really continued throughout the entire run of the channel. So yeah, that first day, I remember we were having some technical difficulties.
We were.
And part of me was like, I hope they continue, because I don't know if I can do this.
Because that episode was one that I did by myself straight to camera. Because I remember you were sitting off to the side, and we were having some problems with the camera. And even though you weren't saying it, I could tell from your body language that you were like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And we got through that. And then we sat and did the Equalizer trilogy, then the top 10 Denzel, then the Barbie Cocaine Bear.
And the beauty of all that, once we did the first one, it was
No
all
problems.
gone. It was
It
just
was
like,
as
bring on the
smooth as
next
could
one.
be.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And I concur. And I knew too, once you and I sat down and started talking, that the comfortability would come with you, because, and I think I even told you beforehand, I've been in acting workshops where people who are pretty good actors will get on camera for the first time, and that little red light does something to them. It just freaks some people out. And I didn't think that would happen with you, but because you hadn't done as much of this as I have, I was just like, the camera's there, but remember, we're just sitting and talking. You'll see me address the audience some, but we're still talking about movies. We're still talking about whatever. And once we got rolling with that, I think after we did the Equalizer trilogy, something seemed like it shifted you to where you were like, oh, so that's what we're doing. And from then on, it just was, you just know what to expect. Far as some of my goals, and you touched on some of it, sharing with the audience who I am and what to expect and what my core values are was a big thing. And just being true and being real. Like, I'm not going to do a topic that I don't care about. I'm not going to do a top 10 list and not be honest about where I want to rank. Like, we will, y'all don't even know how much time we will spend. Like, on our top 10 NBA players, man, some of those were hard. Narrowing down the top 10 point guards, narrowing down the top 10 players, narrowing down, like, and then deciding, splitting the finest hairs. Where do I rank this person? What factors go into it?
I was surprised how much I was concerned. Not that they would ever see it necessarily, but just I was really surprised how much I was concerned about impacting someone's legacy. It's almost like if I put this person at 8 and they were to see it, I don't
Am
want
I going
them
to
to
insult Nikola Jokic if I don't put him higher?
But basically, yeah.
I mean,
and granted, they'll never see me or know me. I get that. But still, as I'm thinking,
Nikola Jokic.
Right. As I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, if I put this guy at 8, it doesn't
don't
mean
wanna
I think he's
insult somebody.
horrible.
Yeah.
It's just, this is my thought, and there's 7 guys better. But if, like we've always said, if you come back and on your list he's number 4, I'm not going to argue that either, because when you're talking about greatness, it's hard to talk about the level of greatness.
Yeah. Greatness is a standard. And to that point, when we were ranking our top 10 picks for this past fantasy football season. If I remember correctly, I had Justin Jefferson number 4, and you had him like number 9. But you were like, man, but the points you made for Jefferson, I do probably have him too low.
Into it.
You're like, you could talk me into drafting him way higher. And there were several of those guys. Both of us had Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 7, but we both said he could be like number 3. Yeah. So that was just kind of a point of we had that backwards, but you were like, you made some points about Jefferson. I wouldn't blame someone drafting him higher. Yeah. And then you got Jamar Chase in our league, and I got Justin Jefferson in the first round. And who did Chris take in the first round?
Chris.
I know he ended up with Josh Allen as his quarterback.
I know that's right. He whipped my tail with him a couple times.
Who was your first round pick in our draft? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was Brown.
Okay, so he got Brown.
You got A.J. Brown. That's right. That's right.
A.J. Brown, I think. Yeah.
Because we all picked right in a row. He took Jamar R. Pursued diligently, and I took Justin Jefferson. Then you took A.J. Brown. That's right.
Because I was the last of the three of us.
Yes, we were all in a row. Yeah. That's okay. Thank you. I couldn't remember quite.
The most beautiful person went last.
You know, I would say I did that on purpose, but I allowed it to randomize. But anyway,
he's got me coughing.
I get everybody.
You know, and you know, when I decided to do the podcast, I'll bounce back a little bit. I also once I decided, okay, let's do this, I immediately spoke with Chris Black because he and I have done one short film together thus far. We've got ideas for several other features. Just takes a lot of money and resources to do a feature film, so we're still working through some of that.
So if y'all got some money, I mean...
If you didn't see the episode of some of the projects I pitched, there's that, but I've got many more between Chris
Don't watch that episode.
And myself.
I've never said that before. Don't watch that episode.
Hey, Talmadge, when we're done,
subscribe.
Maybe you can help me roll that money.
But Chris and I had, we want to do several feature films, and we had talked about, right before I did the podcast, we were even like, let's just set up some appointments where we just practice, like work on the lighting and work on the sound and work on the camera setup. And I was like, heck, let's just get 2 people. Without thinking about the podcast, I was like, let's just shoot 2 people at a table talking and go back and look at it and see, what we can glean from that. So then when the idea of the podcast came along, and this is going to be the word of the day for this episode, I guess, I kind of amalgamated those 2 ideas. I said, we're going to accomplish both of those things because we're getting the experience, too, of what we had talked about. And even though doing the podcast is very different in terms of the setup and the amount of times, and we don't do multiple takes. We roll the camera, and then we just sit here and talk and go. The editing's way more extensive on a film, so they're not equivalent. But if you look back at the past year, the amount of time, the amount of minutes that our episodes add up to, it's like we've done 52 short films.
Yeah.
Some of them are feature length. Like discussing the NFL offseason last year was 2 hours and 26 minutes of the 3 of us sitting and talking. Like we've done some stuff that, especially if you combine an episode 2, it's like we've done multiple feature films. So from that regard, that's definitely something I feel like we've accomplished. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And not only that, if you guys could see what we talk about off camera, if we were somehow able to add that to what we've actually discussed on camera, you're probably adding 10, 12 more hours.
Oh, easily.
So
every time we meet, there's discussions, and one of the 3 of us will be like, man, some of our ideas come from those discussions. I'll be like, let's do an episode on that. Like, man, Chris sometimes like, I should have the camera rolling. So, but then another goal I had was I wanted to do 1 episode per week. I was like, I want to have enough content to do 1 episode per week. And I've done a little research over time, and one of the guys, I don't remember his name now, but some guy I came across that hosts a YouTube channel and makes pretty good money doing it. He said when he started, he would just do an episode whenever he thought about it. But it was like once every few months. And he said, I couldn't build an audience because anybody that liked it was waiting for my next thing.
And then when it didn't happen, they're on to their next one.
And so he said one of the best advice, he said the 2 best pieces of advice I can give is don't worry about having celebrities and competing with, the celebrities of the world. He said, just do really interesting topics if you have guests, have really interesting people, and do your best to have one episode per week uploaded at the same time every week, same day, same time. That's the only way people are going to tune in. And I was already doing those two things.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool. Like, nobody advised me on that. I just said, I want to have really interesting topics. I want to have people that I can sit and talk with. And I want us to get one episode per week cranked out to the channel. So when I saw that episode, I was like, okay.
You knew you might be
guess
onto
we're,
something.
we're on track.
Yeah.
We're on to doing something here. So, Talmadge, what, and I'll say this too if y'all haven't already known, the amount of work that goes in, like, we talked about the amount of time we take on preparing some of our top 10 lists and whatever, but, you know, Chris allows us to shoot in his home.
Yes.
You know, Chris and I set this equipment up. Chris has got the camera. Y'all don't always see Chris. He does the post-production work. There's been a lot of time poured into this. I come up with our topics. Now and then one of these guys will pitch me one. I'm like, yes, that's cool. Let's roll with that. We do a lot of research. Y'all don't see all the notes that we have. A lot of time is put in because I really want every episode to be the best that it can be. We don't just roll out of bed and show up and go, what are we going to talk about today?
You forgot to mention sometimes the most difficult part, and that's getting all our schedules
Scheduling.
together where we can actually do it.
That's the most challenging aspect. Coming up with these ideas, my brain never stops working. Like, I can come up with enough stuff. Once we get here and we get rolling, it's always great. Scheduling, when we all have full-time jobs right now, that is by far, there's just no question, indubitably, the biggest obstacle that we have had up to this point, and yet we still cranked out 52 episodes last year.
We did that many?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, but I mean...
Well, for the channel,
did,
yeah. You were in at least half of them,
Yeah.
maybe a little more. But yeah, for the channel,
Wow.
I had 52 episodes for the calendar year last year.
Okay.
So
That
again,
average at that one a week?
that
you
one
got
per
it.
week, which was, again, one of the
Congratulations,
goals.
sir.
Thank you. And to you guys for being on board with all that. So looking back, Talmadge, and we've touched on a little bit of some of the themes we've done, is there a particular episode or even a moment from an episode or topic that kind of stood out to you? Do you have like a favorite episode we've done? What are some of your biggest
Actually,
memories?
I do, and you're probably going to be surprised by my answer. Besides the first one, for the reasons I already mentioned,
Right.
just knowing, okay, we can do this, I would say an episode that never aired, and you know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Now, we went back and did it again, or a semblance of
We
it.
redid the topic.
But the general manager episode,
Yeah, what if we're NFL owners? And
that was the most interesting to me because, number one, how long it ran. Mm-hmm. But I still felt like that was the first time we really, you mentioned earlier, we don't disagree a lot. There were some disagreements there, but not for the reasons you would think.
Right.
Not because we disrespected each other's opinion, but we all had things going on in our lives.
Yeah.
And I don't think we felt it at the time. I think you did.
I did more.
But when you brought it up to me like a week later, whenever you brought it up to me, I saw it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Had you not brought it up, I probably wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
And you guys aren't going to understand what I mean by this because obviously the episode didn't air. But that was the first time I felt like, okay, if we were three different people and not as mature and didn't know each other as well and didn't respect each other as well, this whole thing could have fallen apart.
Oh, it could have gone off the rails really bad, yeah.
But it didn't. And I still felt like, believe it or not, the information we discussed was still entertaining and valid.
It was.
It just came from a different place than it normally came
It
from.
did, and for me, I made the decision not to upload it, and I talked with these guys both about it. I just didn't feel like it quite reflected what I wanted, and I know for me personally, I was mentally not where I wanted to be for that episode.
And
We
I
all
wasn't
three
either.
had different things going on, and you weren't either, and to me, that episode just felt, it just didn't feel right, even in the midst of shooting it. And I didn't stop the episode. I wanted to, in my mind, I was like, no, we can
Let's see
still
where
do
it goes,
this
yeah.
and see where it goes. But it just didn't feel right. And I apologized to both of these guys. I was like, I should have stopped this before we got started because I wasn't even in the right headspace. And I knew it didn't feel right. And I still led y'all into a situation where I didn't feel like part of me knew we shouldn't be going that direction. And I still told myself, no, we can do it. So I kind of felt like I had to fall on the sword for, I had uncomfortable feelings, and we still went into it. And like you said, the information was good and it was entertaining from a perspective. It just didn't feel right to me. And then we all three kind of agreed once we looked back on it.
And I'll say this. Not that I wouldn't have done it, because we've been friends. We haven't worked together in over a decade, and we've remained friends. And how many people can say that? Because a lot of times you say you're going to stay friends with somebody, you intend to, and you don't.
Life happens, and
But we've actually done it. So I would have done this anyway, but that also reaffirmed to me, I'll do this for however long you want to do it, no matter if we have 1 viewer or 10 million, because that's when I knew we can still collaborate, we can still share ideas, we can still put our thoughts, feelings, emotions out there for people to see and have a conversation about it, and nobody gets upset. We just recalibrate and we figure out how we're going to do it, and that's when I knew. Not that I didn't already know, but that kind of reaffirms.
It just reaffirms it, yeah.
I'm doing this for all the reasons you want to do it.
Right.
We haven't lost sight of that. And as long as we don't, we'll continue to pump them out.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah. No, I concur. And for me, I don't know if I have a favorite. Actually, 2 episodes, I don't know if I'll call them my favorites, but they kind of stand out to me. The first time, and so far only time that we've done, we literally did an episode called Who Needs a Topic? And some of that came from the fact that we can talk about anything. So I told these guys one day, let's just roll the camera sometime with nothing planned and see where it goes. And that went for an hour, and we could have easily kept going. We just literally kept coming up with different ideas. We asked each other things we don't always ask each other.
Right.
And we just, all three of us talked seamlessly for an hour and easily could have gone more. So I want to recycle that idea.
Yeah.
Because we could do it. We could do that every time we shoot. Not saying that we need to devote that much time.
No, but I get you.
But it was that. So to me, that was one of the more memorable episodes.
I agree.
Because literally nothing was planned.
I agree.
And we still sat there and seamlessly flowed for an hour. And then another one which at the moment we're shooting this has not aired yet. But by the time y'all see it, it will have. So if you hadn't seen it, go back and check out episode 3, 2025, entitled...
Hope that didn't confuse you too much.
Yeah, if it did, just, amalgamate your thoughts and go back, because I do have a propensity to say things like that.
Indubitably.
It's entitled episode 3, 2025, Men at Work. And it's the three of us discussing our work history.
I totally forgot about that one.
Well, it's going to upload tomorrow, so...
I'll refresh my own memory.
Yeah, the three of us just sat and talked about our work histories and what we've learned at the different jobs we've had, how it's helped form us, and the things that are important to us. To me, that was interesting because we hadn't done. It was different than what we had done.
Yeah.
It wasn't sports themed. It wasn't about movies. It wasn't about my walk with Christ. It was more about, like I said, our work histories and kind of going from a teenager who doesn't know what a job is to becoming a man and taking on the responsibilities. And that was just an idea that I had, and I pitched it to these guys. And to me, that was, I don't know if I'd say favorite, but one of the ones I enjoy them all a lot. But that was one that stood out to me, I guess.
I can see that. And I'm surprised I forgot that one, because that's one of the ones I enjoyed a lot as well. Yeah.
Well, see, now tomorrow you can rewatch it and remember how much you liked it.
I will do that. And I'll even like it.
Okay, you'll like it and like it. Hopefully some other people will too. And now I am wearing my Bruce Lee shirt. You remember the episode we did that was literally who could defeat Bruce Lee in a fight.
Yeah, I remember
Such a random topic, but I was like, why not talk about that? So that was an episode we did that was, I don't know if I'd say one of the more fun ones, but kind of, because it was so different. It was just, let's talk about something that will never be proven, and who really cares, but why not talk about it just because Bruce Lee is Bruce Lee. So yeah, those to me were some of the more...
Got you.
More
and I can see
ones.
why. Knowing your personality and what you put into things, I could actually see those two being
why I would say that. So looking at kind of where we've come, and I want to kind of look at where do I want to see this go from here. Okay, so we've been doing it for a full year. Had 52 episodes last year, which is one of the goals. So moving forward, definitely don't want the foot coming off the accelerator. So for this year, I want minimum 1 episode per week.
Sure.
If we can get to the point where we're not all working 40 hours a week jobs, if we're making
You
money.
only work 40 hours?
At this, easily. I'd like to do 40 hours a week just doing the podcast.
No, I mean your regular job. You just work 40, please.
Oh, no, 40 plus.
There
40
you go. That's what I wanted you to say, because we're beyond 40.
Yeah. Full-time plus jobs. I would love for us to get to a point where we have the time to devote to where we could upload like one episode per day.
Oh, wow.
We're a long way from that.
Right.
But we could do it. I have no doubt the three of us can make that happen if we just had the time.
It's just the time.
So that may not happen this year. I'm not saying that's a goal for 2025 necessarily.
But that's a goal.
But that is a goal. I would love to get us to a point where we're doing NBA, NFL, Bible, movies.
And you know what? Even if, and I know you're not as concerned with time, but I would say if we went to a daily, even if they were 10, 12 minutes, just thoughts for
That's
the day,
still
or
one
just,
for the,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I mean, and then you have an audience that knows you're putting out content daily, and all of a sudden,
that's an idea too. Yeah. So that is something I would like to see happen. And then, you know, obviously we want the subscribers to grow, the views to grow. I will say I've never been overly concerned with that. Yes, it's a goal, but Talmadge knows this too from working with me. I'm never too fixated on the numbers. I'm never going to place more value on a number on a screen than I am what's the real goal and what are we really doing. I'm more concerned with the content being what I want it to be than I am how many views did we get. Now, I want more people to watch it because I want more people to hopefully be positively impacted by what we're doing. But to me, it's not about, oh, I want this many amount just so I can look at a number on a screen. I want it to be, that's how many people
if we do what we're
saw what I
supposed
was
to do,
doing.
and I tell this to my employees all the time, if we do what we're supposed to do on a daily basis, the numbers will take care of themselves. It's not that I don't care about the numbers, because numbers drive the business.
Right.
Numbers are an indicator of how successful you are. But again, I'm not going to coach to the number. I'm going to coach to the process.
Yes.
And if I do that correctly, the numbers should take care of themselves. And I think that's what you're saying. Don't get us wrong. We don't want to do this if one person's watching. Now, if we're enjoying it, who does it hurt if we do it? But if you put something out there, you're doing it because you want people to enjoy it or learn from it or share with it. And so the more people that can do that, of course that's important to you and to even me, and it's not even my channel. But again, I think what you're saying is you're not going to change who you are or the path that you're taking to get there.
Right.
You're enjoying the process. And if you do that strong enough and well enough and smart enough, the numbers should follow.
And that adds and illustrates exactly kind of where I was going. Yes, I want those things to grow, but I want people to enjoy what we're doing. I want to ultimately, and some of y'all know me better than others, and these guys know me well enough to what I'm about to say. I love helping people. Like, I have a very strong, I think God just instilled me with a natural desire to love people and help people. And I'm very passionate about like areas of mentorship and leadership and just helping people improve their lives. So on some level, I want this channel to do that. Obviously, if we're talking about Bruce Lee fighting Bill Goldberg, that may not change anyone's life, but hopefully it's still enjoyable. Like, so on some level, I want to enrich people's lives with what we're doing. And I'm going to throw this out. Obviously, I want this channel to open up other avenues.
Sure.
I still want to make a living writing and directing feature films, getting books published, helping open some other types of business. I want the podcast to help open those up, but I don't want to leave the podcast behind and say, well, now I'm just a film director. I still want to balance and direct films in between and still do this because I do love what we're doing. It's first of all, it's just a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we could just continue doing this. And that ultimately, I want us to keep cranking out episodes here. And then when I get time to direct a film, I direct a film. Like, I want to balance those things. And one thing I would love, and we've kind of, sometimes we'll hint to this, and we'll say like, you know, B. John Robinson, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'll throw things out like that. One other goal I do have, honestly, is to interview some professional athletes or people from the movie community. I just want to have interesting conversations. Yes. I would love to interview. I'd love to get to a point where one day I'm interviewing an NFL player, next episode an NBA player, Next episode, somebody who just wrote a book.
Don't forget about the pro wrestlers.
Next episode of Pro Wrestler. Hello, Sting. Hello, Shawn Michaels. Yeah, yes, absolutely, indubitably. And even a small business owner that has something that's got a really interesting business. Like, I might invite somebody on who owns a small business, and their episode is sandwiched between Kirk Cousins and Sting. You know what I mean? Like, I want it. Talmadge is never going to stop unless he decides to. I'm never going to stop inviting him on the show as well. So I want to balance that with having the Kurt Warners and the Kurt Camerons and the Tim Tebows and the B. John Robinsons. I want to get chances to interview those types of guys as well. It'll help grow the audience, but also I just want to have interesting conversations with interesting people
because you're interested
that I'm a fan of.
Yes.
And yeah, so sitting and talking to a Jason Witten or any of these other guys I named, that's definitely somewhere that I want to take the channel as well. And then the last thing, I'd love to grow more where we have more interaction with our audience.
Yes.
I've got, I think, 3.3 thousand subscribers right now, and I'm indubitably thankful for all of you. But I would love not only the views and this and that, I want to see more comments. And I want us to be able to engage with the audience better. I'd love to, even if we don't meet everybody in person, I'd love to have some dialogue in the comments on the channel with what did you think about this episode.
And I hope you, I'm not speaking out of turn because I didn't ask you this first, but I was thinking this as you were talking like 5 minutes ago. So it's funny you brought it up. You know, even putting some polls.
Honestly, yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about. But
and
yeah.
so we can get your feedback because we do so many reactions as far as who we think the best are. And, you know, why not put a poll up and say, you know, whose list do you agree with more? Who should be higher on the list to you?
Yeah.
And get
what's your top 10 list? And get that stuff in the comments. And we have had a little bit of that. There's been one or two people who are subscribers who I've never met in person who have commented on our list. And so we've had a little bit of that. I'd love to start getting that type of interaction every episode and just engage more with our audience.
And then we'll tell them what they're looking for from you. Now that you've established what you want to do.
Right.
Now's the time to go out and say, okay, what would you guys like to see?
Yeah. Are you a bigger fan? And you know, I tell people all the time, some people are going to like our episodes about sports more. Some are going to like the ones about movies more. Some are going to like when I have like my youth minister at my church, Daniel Simmons, come on and we sit and talk for 2 hours about topics from the Bible. There's a different audience for these different things. So I get that. Every subscriber is not going to necessarily like every topic to the same extent. So yeah, but that to your point could kind of help drive too. Does this interest you more? Does that interest you more? And again, get to know our audience, learn from our audience as well. So yeah, that's really kind of just some areas I'd like to see us go in, some things I'd like to see us accomplish. I feel very strong about what we've done thus far. First of all, it's a lot of fun. We did get 52 episodes last year. The shortest one was like 4.5 minutes. The longest one so far is 2 hours and 26 minutes. Wow. And I've never been concerned with that. If it's interesting, it's in the 4.5 minute one. I don't think needed to be longer.
Right.
I said what I needed to say in that episode. The 2 hour, 26 minute one, I wasn't worried about it being shorter because we fleshed out a lot of information. Yeah. So to me, it's more about there's not a studio executive governing our time. So it doesn't need to be 2 hours if it doesn't need to be. The Bruce Lee one was like 17 minutes. Yeah. And I felt like that's what it needed to be. So, yeah, but I'm also not going to worry about, was it too short, was it too long? No, did we do what we wanted to do? Did we say what we needed to say? So anyway, having said that, thank you all that are subscribed. Thank you for joining us today. If you did like it, please like the video. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Hopefully this gave you some insight, a little more insight as to who I am, who we are, what I'm wanting to accomplish. It really will help me continue to bring you this type of content as well as many other types. Talmadge, do you have any closing thoughts on all of that?
No, just that I've enjoyed it. And of course, we're always looking for ways for your audience to grow. But it's been pleasurable for me to actually do over the year. The time has flown by.
Yeah.
We come up with ideas all the time. So just looking forward to what else we can do.
Indubitably, and there's just no question.
Nah.
All right, for Talmadge Rodger Varnado III, I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Hope y'all have a great week, and I hope we see you again real soon. I mean, we could talk.